Good morning, my students. I am Mr. Samih Mohammed. I am an English teacher of Al Mustabal Distinguished Language School. Today we are talking about Unit 3, English World 8. The title is Different Places. And now we will talk about Grammar 1. The first part of the grammar is past perfect. We will talk about the form of past perfect. The form is subject, had, past participle. For example, she had arrived or she had gone. If you want to talk about the negative, you can add not to the helping verb had, and the form is subject, had, not, plus past participle. She hadn't arrived or she hadn't gone. Now we will talk about the questions. We have two kinds of question. The first part is interrogative question. And the question here will begin with had, subject, past participle, and don't forget question mark. For example, had she arrived? Had she gone? And if you wanted to answer, you can use
Unit
yes
3
or no.
Language Study. Number 1
Yes, she had.
A fairy tale.
No, she
It's a
hadn't.
traditional story about
And we
things
can
that do not
answer
happen in
complete
real
answer.
life.
For example,
2
yes, she had
The
arrived.
Mamba.
No, she
It's a
hadn't
large,
arrived.
fatal, poisonous snake.
And if you wanted
4
to talk about
Investigation.
WH question,
It's the
the form
process
is
of getting
question word,
information.
had,
Number
subject,
4
past participle.
Waterbuck.
For
It's an
example,
animal like a deer.
where had she gone?
Number 5
She had gone to
Carnivores. Animals
Alexandria.
that eat meat.
And now we will talk
6
about
Bottle.
the use
A
of
small bottle of
past
water.
perfect. Number 1. For an action which happened before another past action or before a stated time in the past. For example, they had already sat down for dinner by 8 p.m. Number 2. For action which finished in the past and whose result was visible in the past. For example, Bill had injured his legs in a car accident, so he had to use a wheelchair for 6 months. The action here finished in the past and its result was visible in the past too. The result here is he had to use a wheelchair for 6 months. This is the result of the action. We have keywords of past perfect. After. If you wanted to use after, we have to mention the rule of after. The first rule, after plus past perfect, had plus past participle, and past simple, the second form of the verb. For example, first he read the paper, then he watched TV. In this example, I want you to use after. After he had read the paper, he watched the TV. I used after, and after that we have past perfect, he had read. And the second part, he watches the TV. It's a past simple. We have another use of after. I can use after plus verb plus ing, gerund. And the second part will be past simple. For example, after reading the paper, he watched the TV. Before. The rule of before is past simple, and the second part is had plus past participle. For example, she studied her lessons and then went to bed. This is the example, and I want you to use before at the beginning of the sentence. So it will be, before she went to bed, she had studied her lessons. After before, I used the past simple, she went. And the second part is past perfect, she had studied. And I have another usage of before. Before plus gerund, verb plus ing. And the second part is past perfect. For example, before going to bed, she had studied her lessons. So I used here going gerund instead of past simple before going to bed, and the second part is past perfect. She had studied her lessons. The second part of grammar in this unit is past perfect continuous. Now we will talk about the form of past perfect continuous. The form is subject plus had been plus verb plus ing. For example, he had been crying. Negative. Subject had not been plus verb plus ing. So I add not to the helping verb had. He hadn't been crying. Question. Number 1, interrogative. I can begin the sentence or the question. I can begin the question with had plus subject plus been plus verb plus ing. For example, had he been crying? This is the question, and if you want to answer, you can use yes or no. Yes, he had, or no, he hadn't. The second form of question, WH question. Question word, had, subject, been, verb plus ing. For example, what had he been doing when he visited him? He had been watching TV. He had been watching TV. The use of past perfect continuous. Number 1. To put emphasis on the duration of an action which is started and finished in the past before another past action, or a stated time in the past, usually with since or for. For example, they had been skating together for 5 years before they entered the competition. Number 2. For an action which lasted for some time in the past and whose result was visible in the past. For example, she had been working hard that day, so she was tired. She spent all day working hard, and the result here of the action visible in the past. And now, pay attention with this note. The past perfect continuous is the past equivalent of the present perfect continuous. For example, he had been waiting for hours, so he was buried. The action had been waiting lasted for some time in the past, And the result here was buried, was visible in the past. The second example will show to us the difference between past perfect continuous and present perfect continuous. Example B, it is in present perfect continuous. The example is, he has been waiting for hours, so he is buried. The action has been waiting started in the past and the result is buried is still visible in the present. So there is a difference between past perfect continuous and present perfect continuous in result. Past perfect continuous, the result is in the past, and present perfect continuous, the result is in the present.
Unit 3, different places. Part 1, reading. The White Giraffe. Martin Allen's parents have died. Allen has traveled from England to Africa to live with her grandmother. Her grandmother owns a wildlife reserve. Tendai, a Zulu tracker who works for her grandmother, has told her of a rare white giraffe believed to be in the reserve. He's found its tracks and he has followed them. He has never been lucky enough to see the animal itself. One rainy night, Martin glimpsed the giraffe from her bedroom window. She decided to go into the reserve to find it. The air was perfume sweet, with the scent of falling mangoes and gardenia blossoms. Martin set off blindly through the dripping trees in the general direction of the game bar gate. The one useful thing she'd overheard during her investigation the previous night had been Tandai telling her grandmother the new code for the bad luck. She'd made a point committing of the numbers to memory. When her hands touched the code metal gate, she felt for the heavy chain that bound it and the lock that secured it. She switched on her torch and entered the numbers on the wet dial. Unit 3, Language Study. Number 1, a fairy tale. It's a traditional story about things that do not happen in real life. 2, the mamba. It's a large, fatal, poisonous snake. 4, investigation. It's the process of getting information. Number 4, water buck. It's an animal like a deer. Number 5, carnivores. Animal that eat meat. 6, bottle. A small bottle of water.